Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leo Alves podcast. And in today's podcast episode, I have a fellow coach with me, Terry, on. I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to let him introduce himself, but I have, as I said, I wanted to get more features on the podcast in 2025. So, here we are, we get the ball rolling. And over to you, Terry. You can introduce yourself and we'll just go from there.
All right, hey Lito, how you doing? Thanks for having me on. My name's Terry. I've been a trainer for over 7 years now. I actually met Leo on a mentorship with Jordan Sides mentorship. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to discuss about you know training tips. You know, hopefully give you guys some tips with your training and provide you guys some value on this podcast.
And where are you based? Are you based in New York?
I'm in New York. I'm actually in Long Island.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's quite. I've never been to Long Island. I've been to New York a few times. I'd love to
Yeah, Long Island is like the countryside. No one comes out here. Everyone just
really.
goes to the city. Yeah, yeah.
I've heard good things. But yeah,
Yeah. There's good things to do, but yeah.
okay. So, do you go to New York often?
I used to,
City?
not as much now. Now it's hard because like you have to drive in and also to find parking. Unless it's Sunday, it's free parking. Then now they have like the congestion toll. You have to like pay just to get into New York City. I live in technically I
Mm.
live in New York. It should be free for me, but yeah, but not as much as before.
And how long have you been a trainer for?
Um, this will be my 8th year. So I've been a trainer for a while. I went to school for exercise science. Well, it's called fitness and wellness in my school. But right after that, I got a job at Equinox right after school. Been there for 2 years. Then I left, and then I just been training privately ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited to get stuck into the chat today just because, I was looking at your about section
Hmm.
on your website, before the call and just looking at a few things. And obviously we can just go wherever the conversation ends up taking us. Like I've
Yeah.
not like got like a massive script in mind.
Mhm.
Um, but one thing I did notice is that like you have achieved some very impressive personal bests with the squat, deadlift, and I think it was the bench press. Uh,
Yeah.
and I thought, you know what, we could talk about that. Like, what made you decide to work towards that? Like, what it took to achieve it? What was the process like? Because um, I know, well, I'm going to assume that it was hard. It was hard work to achieve those things. Like, it's not like
Yeah, for
you
sure.
genetically like woke up one day and you were just you were pretty close to that already, and then it just it
Yeah.
took a little bit of tweaking. Like, I'm sure it was a lot of hard work, but I feel like a lot of people, maybe sometimes when they're getting started, underestimate how hard they have to work
Hmm.
and what exactly they've got to do because just the other day I received a message from someone who was getting frustrated because they felt like they weren't seeing results at the gym.
Right, right.
Turns out they'd been training for about a month consistently. So
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, you know what, we can talk about this a bit and we'll just go from there. So over to you, maybe you can clarify what they were, what the personal bests were exactly, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I mean, I don't do powerlifting now. I've done it a couple years ago. I also did a bodybuilding show, but powerlifting was actually my first actual fitness competition. I randomly was working out in the gym. A trainer that I knew in the gym was coaching someone else, who was also a trainer at the gym, and he coached him to do a powerlifting meet. So I was like, oh, why not? It's something to work towards. So I decided to ask him to coach me, and yeah, it took me probably 2 years to really like dial it in terms of just the training and really get stronger at those three specific lifts. My personal best was the squat, which was 500 pounds. No, that was the deadlift. Sorry, deadlift was 500 pounds. Squat was 400, and then the bench was I would say 280, somewhere around 270 to 280 pounds. I don't lift that much anymore. I wish I did. It's definitely something. If you don't do it consistently, of course, you lose it, right? Just like movement. If you're not exercising, moving daily, you end up being stiff, you end up being tight. So it was tough. It was tough training, but um, it was also fun. It was a good experience. I learned a lot. Learning how to push yourself, like you said, about the intensity, the effort it takes to actually make the changes you want. It requires, of course, consistency, but I think a lot of people also forget that your effort and your intensity in the gym actually matters if you want to provide like the right stimulus to see the changes, whether it be building strength or building muscle. It doesn't just happen from you showing up to the gym and not being intentional about your training.
Mm. Yeah, and I love that you said those things because, I'm gonna ask more of what maybe those 2 years kind of look like, but okay, let's say someone who just wants to generally improve their health, get stronger, gain some muscle, maybe lose a bit
Yeah.
of body fat. I'm sure they certainly don't need to go as hard as maybe you went and dialed it
Oh
in.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I'd love
there's
to know like maybe what it does. Maybe the listener, just out of curiosity, would love to know maybe what it takes to, let's say, to lift that much weight. Even though you don't lift it anymore, like you've done
yeah.
it, so you've got that experience. And what did those 2 years look like training and nutrition wise?
I mean, usually when I compete in a competition, I'm a very competitive person. So if I'm doing a competition, I'm going in there with a mindset of trying to win. Even though, of course, everyone's trying to compete and do their best and try to set their own personal records. But I was very consistent. It brought my intensity from just training in the gym. Like some days I would go in, I would not feel good. So I would just go easy that day. But when you have a specific program that you have to follow, and there's a training protocols that you have to follow, even on the days where you don't feel the best, sometimes you don't listen to your body and you just have to push through. So that's the difference I felt when I was training for the competition in comparison to even training now. I mean, now that I'm not competing anymore, my training now is more based on how I'm feeling. Some days, if I'm feeling off, I'll listen to my body. I was also a lot younger too, so I was like maybe 5 years ago. So yeah, that probably plays a role as
Yeah. So, what were you training like? How many days a week? And were you tracking your food, or did you just have
well.
guidelines?
Yeah. I was training. I believe I was training 4 times a week. It was 4 times a week. Each day was a specific day to work on one of the three lifts. So for those of you who are listening, if you've never done a powerlifting or heard about powerlifting, it's a squat, bench, and a deadlift with the barbell. And you have 3 attempts to hit your highest number on all three. And I was training 4 days a week. My nutrition was on point in terms of I wasn't tracking calories or I wasn't tracking the macronutrients like I did for the bodybuilding competition. But overall, my nutrition, I just made sure I get enough protein, made sure I was eating mainly nutrient-dense food, so I was feeling good in my workouts. But the training part was probably the hardest part in comparison to other type of competitions that you see. Whereas in bodybuilding, it's more like the nutrition side. I mean, training is important too, but when it comes to just the level intensity, like some weeks you're lifting close to your max, which is 95% of your 1 rep max. And those get pretty heavy. So sometimes when I go up to the bar, it's a bit intimidating because you don't know if you might fail to lift. So there's times where I went into the gym and I actually failed the lifts, and there's chance for you to get injured too. So the training is definitely on a different level when it comes to just your normal training.
Mm. Yeah. And how
Yeah.
many days a week were you training?
4 days a week. It was 4 days a week. Yep, four
Okay.
days a week. And like I said, each day was focused on a specific lift. And then like after the specific lift and you finish, let's say squats, afterwards you would just focus on accessory movements. So things that will help you improve the squat or things that will help you improve your bench press or weak points that you have. For example, I was weak at the bottom portion of the deadlift, like lifting the bar up. There's specific exercise to help you in that portion of that exercise. So depending on where your weak points are, there's specific exercise to help you improve those.
Yeah. And I really do like how you've outlined um those points because, like you said at the start, a lot of people get into well, when they're just figuring out things out for the first time, they've got no idea what they're doing in the gym. They're trying to figure things out. Maybe they've not got a plan. They're just doing random exercises.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
lifting however much weight they might feel like on the day. I certainly did these things when I first started. And it just shows like I said again, you don't need to necessarily dial it in maybe as much as you did, but you need to have at least some sort of clarity to make progression
Right.
and like
Right.
a clear like training program. Like you weren't tracking calories, but as you said, you had guidelines. You were making sure you had enough protein, you were eating nutritious
Hmm.
food. So
Yeah.
yeah, to make progress, um, you are going to there are a lot of lessons that transfer over on just every to your everyday person, like even to the listener right now.
Yeah. I mean, I always tell people I work with that you need to have some type of structure. I mean, it's okay to deter away from the plan that you have, but going into that day and having a plan to follow is the most important thing I think anyone can have when it comes to the nutrition and also their workouts. Because when you have structure, you're less likely to go off track, whether it be with your nutrition or with your training. And then you just work around it. Some days you might have lower energy, some days you might have more cravings, and you give yourself that flexibility to work with. But when you have a structured plan going into the day, you're less likely to just go all over and do whatever you feel like doing that day.
Mm. And one thing I want to ask as well is like, so because I feel like a lot of people don't do this as well when they first start out, and I feel like it should have more importance, and it's just basically like setting and tracking goals. I feel like a lot of people are like,
Right.
okay, I want to, let's say I want to lose body fat. I'm sure a lot of people are doing this right now with their New Year's
Yeah.
resolutions. Their New Year's
Hmm.
resolution is I want to lose fat,
Yeah.
which has good intention behind it, but it's not a very good goal because it's like, okay, but we need more depth. Like, how are you going to do
Hmm.
it? How are you
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
measure it? What does it look like? What are
Right.
the steps that you're going
Right.
to take on a daily or weekly basis? And I'm sure with what you just, with that whole process, um, I'm sure maybe there were goals or like, or things that you were tracking, whether it was performance or nutrition or just
Hmm.
physically, how much weight you lifted. I don't know, behaviors and habits that you were tracking and that you were on top of whatever it might have been that you maybe learned or got good at during that those 2 years and during that process and maybe during your bodybuilding years, like we can speak about the whole thing,
Yeah.
that you have learned and taken away and like, okay, I can apply this to even the listener right now, like just the whole that whole concept of, setting goals and how to just set yourself up for success.
Yeah. I mean, setting goals is important. I feel that for a lot of people, when they set fitness goals or in just any goal in general, even sometimes myself, I would set a goal and say, yeah, and say, for example, I want to get 10 more clients, but what does that really even mean, right? Or for example, if someone wants to lose 20 pounds, but what does that even mean? How does that look like? Or they just want to, for most people, I want to tone up, I want to build muscle, I want to lose fat, which is the main three response I usually get anytime I would onboard a new client, but that doesn't really mean anything, right? It doesn't give you any purpose to go and show up for your workouts or to be on track with your nutrition. But when you can be more specific about your goal, for example, if you want to lose weight, you want to lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks or 12 weeks or however long you want to lose it, that gives you purpose. And then if you can get deeper to that, like why do you want to lose the weight? Like, does it make you feel a certain way? Maybe it's preparing for a celebration, a ceremony. When you can get on a deeper level of why you want to do something, you're more likely to show up for the daily tasks that you need to do. So I think that's really important when it comes to goal setting.
Yeah, yeah, it's I think like a level of clarity. Like I think an example I gave recently where I was just like, yeah, this is the depth that you want to go into. Okay, so I want to lose body
Hmm.
fat. It's the new year. I want to lose body fat. Again, it's not a very good goal. Okay, let's
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
All right. How about the aim is to, let's say we're going to try and drop 2 belt sizes. Now, on top
yeah,
of what are the daily actions and behaviors that you're going to
yeah,
take? Steps, be consistent with that. Be consistent with protein, be consistent with fruit and veg. Um, Calories, whatever it might be. So yeah, there's a lot behind goal setting and tracking that. I think the person wouldn't look. So maybe you have some of your own examples that you were doing
yeah.
um throughout that process.
In terms of what I was tracking,
Like in maybe let's say we can use bodybuilding, we can use that
yeah,
powerlifting time.
yeah.
What
I
was it that you
mean,
were aiming for
for the
specifically?
powerlifting, it was mainly just tracking my performance in the gym. Nutrition for powerlifting, of course, it matters, but it's not on the level of, for example, bodybuilding, where you have to make sure you eat in a calorie deficit, of course. But not even a calorie deficit, but making sure you're eating the right macronutrients and breaking it down from like your fats, your carbs, and your protein because you need to make sure you perform in the gym, but that also you have to look a certain way for the competition. So I was tracking literally to the gram, pulling out the scale. I mean, this is not advice I give to for the general public. I don't think you should be tracking everything to the gram. Should you be using a scale? Yes, for a period of time. I think I've learned so much from just from those years of just tracking religiously. I mean, some people would say it's a bad relationship. You build, you end up creating this terrible relationship with food. And I mean, I think honestly, for me, it did for a period of time. There was this time where I mean, I'll give you the story. When I was doing my bodybuilding show, there was times where I would literally pull up a YouTube video, watch someone else eat while I eat my food, just so I feel good about what I'm eating, because it satisfies my cravings. But I just learned so much from just tracking my food on the scale and knowing exactly how much something is in terms of portion sizes. And I think that's just helpful for someone to go through when they're in that phase where they've been in and out of diets. They tried everything, but they still don't really understand what works and what doesn't work. So just seeing that in person on a daily basis for almost 2 years straight when I was preparing for the show, that was really helpful. I think now, even when I look at food now, I can close in terms of the grams and the calories. I can be pretty accurate just by looking at it. So I think it's a skill. It's a skill to be honest. It's a skill that I think people should be learning when it comes to that weight loss process or any fat loss process that anyone wants to go through.
Yeah, I can 100% relate
Yeah.
on this one. Um, I also got very extreme with calorie tracking, and some people do
Yeah.
say, like, oh, like tracking your food is weird or something like that. However they want to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
I would disagree. I think obviously it can result in some extreme behaviors, but that is
Yeah.
like literally any nutrition approach that one decides to take.
It doesn't
Um,
mean it have to be nutrition, I think. Like anything in
yeah.
general, you do it to a certain level. I mean, it's going to be it's not going to be healthy in a certain way, but at the same time, you have to get to that level, I think, in order to learn that skill. You
Hmm.
have to go through that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like, I think sometimes like going into it maybe with an exact timeline, maybe it doesn't have to be a hard timeline. Like you can maybe adjust it somewhat once you get closer. But
Mhm.
going in it, okay, I'm gonna just try and track everything I eat and drink for just to start off with for 30 days. If
But
I want to keep going, I'll keep going with it
yeah.
after. But yeah, you can get a lot of insight because this was reminding me actually of a conversation. I wrote about this conversation in my book, so it's always at the
Yeah, oh,
forefront of
yeah.
my mind
Congrats on your
because,
book, by the way.
oh yeah, thanks,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
Yeah, because I reread my book like I don't know, man, like 20 times, and by the end of it, I was like, I never want to read my book again because I've had to proofread it so many times. It's a great book, don't get me wrong. Link in the show notes of this
Yeah,
podcast
go
episode
buy
if you want to grab it.
it.
But like obviously you have to proofread your work so many times you get sick of it. But there's a conversation I write about in that book where I had this one-to-one online fitness. I have this one-to-one online fitness
Mhm.
member, and yeah, tracking calories. We're tracking calories. That's the approach. Time passes. Some time passes, a few weeks, and the data is not starting to add up. Like this guy's calorie intake, protein
Mhm.
intake, consistency levels. Your scale weight shouldn't be going up.
Yeah.
At most
Right.
maintain. I was like,
Right.
bro, are you using like any tools to
Yeah.
calorie track? And he was like, no, I'm just eyeballing. And oh, me and him, we're good friends, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can I
right.
can give him that tough love as well. Like, well, it's
Yeah,
not even
yeah.
tough love. It was just more me like, bro, like we need to use a scale because
Hmm.
you've never built up this experience before. Like, how can you know what some an eyes like? How can you know what a serving looks like when you've never accurately tracked it? Turned around, like long conversation short, like he was like, yeah, that's a good point. I'll start. Next day, I get a text, bro, I can't believe that's what 100 grams of rice looks like. And I was like, see, yeah, like there we go.
Yeah.
I can't remember what even was the point of me bringing this up, but but yeah, I do know, yeah, it was relevant to our conversation just now, but yeah, it's just it can be so useful and there's
Mhm.
just like so many examples of it and you don't have to do it forever, calorie track,
Yeah. Yeah.
but like
I,
yeah, as you
yeah,
can
I
see.
currently don't do it myself. I mean, For some people, it's a lifestyle. Some people could do it, every single day. They get into MyFitnessPal and it's just a routine for them. But I think for a brief period of time, just going through it, like you said, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or even a year, it's really helpful in just learning how to, how to, how to track your nutrition. And it's a skill, like any other skill. You have to really be consistent at it and just put yourself through it in terms of, doing it day in and day out in order to get better at it.
Yeah, it's a skill. Yeah, it's exactly as you said. That's how I try and explain it to people as well. Um, I would say I did it probably as religiously as you did for about the same amount of time,
Yeah.
maybe an extra year.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't. I'm on and off with it nowadays. I would say I'm
Yeah.
mostly in this period. I would say in the last few months, last maybe year, I've been mostly off,
Hmm.
just because I don't feel the need for it. But I will every once in a while do like maybe a recalibration, air quotes type of phase where I start tracking
Yeah.
again for a few days, and
Hmm.
because I find like sometimes, yeah, like it does start to get like a little bit off. But yeah, but mostly yeah, once you've built up that skill, you're good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good skill to have for life because you could carry on and not even for yourself, but let's say you have kids and you want to teach them how to properly look at nutrition and teach them how much they should be having. And not saying that they can't have a specific type of food, but when it comes to just understanding and how to read a nutrition label, I think everyone should be learning that. It's something that's not taught in here, at least in the States. When I was a kid, they don't teach that here. And growing up, I remember my parents just buying soda because they thought everyone else was buying it, so I should be buying it too for my kid. And I was literally drinking soda as a kid, like it was water. I was having like multiple cups a day, and like was not diet soda. This was like full sugar soda, and I thought it was just something I was supposed to drink because my parents were buying it for
Yeah, no, I can relate with my grandparents, but I can 100% relate,
me.
man. Like but like instead of soda, it was more like donuts and stuff. I
Yeah,
yeah, man. I look back and I'm just like, whew, good thing that habit didn't carry on into adulthood. Um,
right.
yeah. Anyway, did you have anything else you wanted to mention on that just whole discussion before I move on to the next point I had in mind?
But no, you can move on. Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, one thing I wanted. So how long were just I want to clarify one thing quick. How long were you doing bodybuilding for?
I just did one competition.
And
Um,
and what was that whole process like? The length
it
of
was I gave myself 1 year. So from August of 2018, and then into August of 2019. It was a 6 month bulking period, then a 6 month cutting period. Then I did my competition, and then I just phased out of it. I was supposed to do another powerlifting competition in 2020, but then because of COVID, everything got shut down. Now I just kind of transitioned into just general strength training for myself. I do jiu-jitsu. So
oh,
you do
nice.
jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Did you could recovered, right? From I saw that you got injured, so
Man, it was
how you been?
it was yeah, when it happened it was fucked. Like this
Yeah, yeah,
there's no other way to put it. Like
yeah.
yeah, I tore my hamstring.
You tore your hamstring. Yeah, I
I
tore my
crashed
MCL in the
Oh
jiu-jitsu.
yeah, we were
Yeah,
speaking
yeah,
about this briefly over on DMs a few months back. Yeah, how
yeah,
have
yeah.
you recovered now?
Yeah, I recovered now. It was
Yeah,
1 year ago
same.
or 2 years ago. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So, and would you say like it's back to where it was before, or
Yeah, I mean, I have no issue squatting. I mean, right now I'm not squatting a ridiculous amount of weight, but I have no problem squatting or doing any type of movement. I mean,
okay,
sometimes I feel there's a more of a pull on that side of my knee, but other than that, it's fine. But yeah, the bodybuilding was just the one competition, and then powerlifting was previous year to that.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to get sidetracked to what I originally wanted to discuss, which I'll
yeah.
bring it up in a bit. But
Okay.
did your injury happen at Jiu-Jitsu as well?
Yeah, it did
Oh
happen
man, like
jujitsu. It was
to the
in
listener, don't
yeah.
let this put you off. Like Jiu-Jitsu is fun. We're both
Yeah,
talking about
jujitsu
how
is
we're
fun,
coming out
yeah.
broken. We're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. I mean, it's just because the sport is you're just in awkward positions that you can't really prepare for. Like, for example, for a powerlifting competition, you're doing those three lifts. There's nothing else. No one's pushing you while you do the lift. No one's twisting your body in weird directions. But when you're doing jiu-jitsu, the person you roll with matter, the intensity matter. There's so many factors that goes into it. Things just happen.
Yeah. And when did your injury happen exactly?
It was, I believe, right when I started jiu-jitsu. It was 2 years ago. I
Oh,
was
two
three
years.
months in. Yeah, I was 3 months in. I was a beginner. But I decided to take a mixed class, which was like advanced and beginners. They didn't recommend it, but I know some of the beginners were also taking it. I also wanted to try out no gi. So for those of you listening, this just means you're wearing rash guards and compression t-shirts and shorts when you're doing it. So I was rolling with this guy. This guy was maybe 100 pounds more than me, and he got into a bottom position. I was standing up, and he was in this position, I think, trying to do a sweep. So he was trying to knock me down when I was standing up. And I had my leg in the straight position. I was just trying to tug my leg out instead of trying to push off his leg off my hip because he was doing, and for those who listening, it's like there's this different position in jiu-jitsu. There's X guard, single leg X. So he was doing, I think, a single leg X, which is a position where he wraps his leg around my leg from the bottom. And I was just trying to use force to pull the leg out. And then he was going in one direction with his arm and the leg, and I was pulling in another direction. So then the knee just, yeah, you heard the pop, and then it was not a good feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always try and sometimes it ends up happening just like the way the lesson goes, but I always try. Yeah, because yeah, it's just I try and spar with people like
Yeah.
similar body weights. Like when I see
Yeah,
someone,
I learned after that.
yeah,
I learned to try to spar with someone with similar body weight, and someone who I know isn't going to kill me.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because when I get someone that's like a lot heavier than me, man, I just don't. I'll be straight up. I don't know if this is wrong or right with all of me, but I
yeah,
don't really try too hard because
yeah. I mean, it's
it's not
just,
worth it, man. Like a
yeah, yeah,
hundred pound difference or something, like it's
yeah.
a lot, and you really feel it when there's like someone that much heavier on
Oh,
top
for
of you.
sure,
So
for
I'm
sure.
like, I'm not even trying.
Yeah.
Just take this win,
There,
whatever
there's
you want to
there's
call it.
times where I tap just because the guy was just laying on top of
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just couldn't
Same,
breathe.
same. Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And or when I'm going with someone I can tell is much lighter than me, I really do try
Mm.
and be mindful of that.
Right, for
And
sure.
yeah, cause yeah. But yeah, man.
How
As
did
far
your
as,
injury happen though?
actually,
Yeah.
I would say the person was probably about a similar body weight to me.
Okay.
If they weren't, it probably wouldn't have been too far off.
Yeah.
Man, it was actually a visitor to the gym, to
Oh,
the
it's a
dojo.
visitor. Oh.
Yeah, so I'm not actually. I don't want to ever spar with a visitor
Oh,
again.
okay. Yeah.
Like,
Visitors. Yeah. Unless it's someone that's visited before or someone that everyone knows, it's hard
yeah.
to know if that
So
person is
I
gonna,
learned my
you know,
lesson too.
yeah.
Yeah, and I was just getting thrown around like a rag doll. It was definitely a much higher belt.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think looking back, he was going unnecessarily hard for he knew I was a white belt. Uh,
Oh, okay.
and I
He
think
was
he
just
was
trying to
like
show his dominance.
maybe because he probably
Yeah.
thought he was in a new place, so he was like,
No,
"Oh,
maybe.
I don't know. I never
Yeah.
saw the guy again or spoke to him again." I don't blame him. I know freak accidents happen, and to be
Yeah.
fair, it wasn't anything crazy he did to me. It was just like it was just a lot of very sudden and quick movements that
Hmm.
I had been in those positions before, but I don't know.
Yeah.
This time, my hamstring tore, and bam, like I felt it immediately. I knew it was bad straight away when it
Yeah.
happened because I could feel the pop as well. Like there was just like
Right.
I'd never felt that, and it really
For
hurt.
sure. Yeah.
Luckily it wasn't. It was like, and I put this in air quotes, like luckily it was a grade one, which is like the
Oh,
least
that's good. Yeah,
severe.
the lowest. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
good.
so I'm good now. I'm fine now. That happened at the end of July. I'm fine now. What, it's mid-January now, so yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Um, I can sometimes feel like a slight, like what I can sometimes feel my right leg is stronger than my left.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
before I felt like it was pretty even.
Mm.
Um, but other than that, it's fine. So, and I know that very slight imbalance, which
Yeah.
a lot of people have imbalances anyway. It's only
Right.
going to iron out with time. So yeah, it's and I'm still going with jiu-jitsu. I've got my belt exam soon, so I'm looking forward to
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yeah, and yeah,
Well, good luck.
you stuck with it?
Yeah, I'm still with it. Recently I haven't been consistent with it, but I
Nah,
have a
same, same.
yeah, I have 4 stripes on my white belt, so I'm close to getting my blue belt too.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I haven't been as consistent I'd like, but mostly because I've just been traveling so much.
Yeah.
And it just makes it hard to stay consistent. But anyway, yeah, I went way off track. I just thought I'd
That's okay.
talk to you
Yeah,
about what I
yeah.
had in mind. I hope the listener doesn't mind. Yeah, and all this this injury talk, like to the listener, if you're thinking of joining or martial arts, and we're
Yeah.
gonna be biased here, like do it. It's fun. I personally joined it because I just wanted to get like in just start doing a different type of physical activity than rather
Yeah, same
lifting
here.
weights. So yeah, I just thought it would be nice, and I wanted to be part of a community as well because working because
Hmm.
I work alone a lot. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just
Don't let in, yeah. And then
yeah.
another message I think it's
They were
important
just freak incidents.
to, yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
to the listeners that don't let injuries deter you from being physically active. I know
yeah.
for some people, and maybe they had a injury because they pulled their back doing a specific exercise, or they hurt their knee from a specific exercise, or some maybe a freak accident happened when they're lifting. Don't let that deter you away from not doing it ever again. There's always different exercise you can implement, or there's just better ways you can go about your training and be smart about it so you don't get injured in the future. But accidents are happens, injury happens is just part of the process.
Yeah,
Yeah,
freak accidents happen. Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I know people who have been doing jiu-jitsu for years,
Oh,
and they haven't had one as severe as maybe what ours was. Maybe you get the
hmm.
odd like minor thing here and there, but as I
Yeah,
said, it's
yeah,
minor.
yeah,
But yeah, like again, it's just sometimes it's a bit of chance as well, and
yeah,
just
exactly. Yeah.
making more sensible decisions, like not
Hmm.
sparring with maybe someone you don't know and is visiting the gym or someone that's 100
Yeah,
heavier.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, like so one thing I wanted to discuss before I went on this whole tangent about jiu-jitsu was um so the listener, let's imagine they're struggling with their workout consistency a bit, which is very
Hmm.
common. And they're hearing you and they're like, wait, did this guy just say he was doing powerlifting for 2 years, very consistently, bodybuilding for a year? Like, bro,
Yeah,
I can't even get myself to go to the gym for like 2 months. How is this
yeah,
guy doing it for 3, 4, 5, 6 years? All right, you've been doing it for, you've probably been going to the gym years now, but like the
yeah,
intensity was very high for 3 of
yeah,
those years with the bodybuilding,
yeah.
powerlifting. Like, how are you motivating yourself? I'm sure like, that's what the listener is probably thinking.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to motivation, I mean, I think just having a coach is important. I mean, I think if you can afford a coach, it's probably one of the best investments you can be making for yourself. Um, I know not everyone can afford a coach, but just having someone there, whether it be a friend you can work out with. I was doing a powerlifting competition, and someone else in the gym was also competing in the same competition. So we would sometimes train together. We would keep each other accountable. Whenever we would go up for, whenever I would go up for a personal record during training, or he would go up for a personal record during training, we were there to cheer each other up. So I think just having accountability and also having the support system is very important to keep yourself motivated because you're not going to be motivated every single day. Like, let's be honest. Like, that's a feeling that you get. Some days you feel it. Like some days I feel motivated to um, create content for my business, and some days I don't. It's the same thing when it comes to working out for it, if you're listening, and it's just a feeling that you have to kind of put on the back burner and not let it consume you, and not rely on it so much, and just rely on the actions that you have to take every single day to see the progress that you.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I think like you said, yeah, coaching can be great, obviously because you've got that experienced eye with you, but even I'm speaking from my experience too, when I had a
Hmm.
coach, it helps a lot. Just a lot from like just the accountability side of things as well, because a lot of people know
Yes.
what to do as well, or kind of know what to do,
Yes.
but they're still not doing it. But when you have
Yeah.
someone to keep you accountable and you're paying them on, I don't know, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, whatever it
Right.
might be,
Yeah.
like you're going to turn up because number one, you don't want to be wasting your money unless you've
Yeah.
got a lot of it, then you probably don't care.
Yeah.
But number two, you don't
Yeah.
really want to disappoint the person you're meant to be showing up to. Um,
Right.
so yeah, accountability can just help a ton.
Mhm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I think it goes back to like being in school, right? When you have the teacher there and you have a deadline for a project or homework, you're more likely to do it because if that deadline wasn't there, or that accountability wasn't there from the teacher, then you're not gonna do any of the homework or exams or any of the projects that they give you.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's just that accountability, and then I think you said another one there that is really good is just like having maybe like a gym buddy or something. You guys
Yeah.
can keep each other
Hmm.
accountable. I think
Yeah.
that's nice to have when I've trained with people who I would say were a similar level to me because when it's worlds apart, it's probably not as easy, but if they're a similar
Yeah.
level to you, then it can be really nice to have someone that keeps you accountable.
Mhm.
Um, in a different sense because it's just like it's like a gym buddy. Like maybe on a day you don't feel like it, they'll be like, come on, let's
Mhm.
go. Um,
Yeah.
one thing I would say, like the caveat with that one is more like don't let 100% of your workouts depend on whether or not they show up for the day. Like if they don't feel
Right.
like it doesn't mean you should cancel too, which I've seen in the past. Like just look at them coming as like a nice bonus.
Yeah.
And yeah, but yeah, was there anything else you wanted to say just about that phase of just very good consistency and
I
maybe
mean, I think that's being consistent. I think it's a skill of itself. Like, I think anything you do when it comes to being good at it is just repetition. Like, I was never consistent with the gym when I first started working out. People think that because I'm a trainer, or because maybe people think because you're a trainer, people automatically assume that our nutrition is always on point and our training is always on point, and we love going to the gym all the time. But it was never like that when I first started training. Um, um, I was I was lost with my nutrition. I was doing flexible dieting back when it was like 2013, 2012, back when this first started becoming popular for tracking your macros and tracking your calories. And I was not consistent with that, and I was adding in, and this was the time when I thought that you can just eat whatever you want and put into your calories and just consume it. And as long as you hit your macros and your calories, it's fine. But then I quickly learned that you can't just eat like crap, because I was eating like 5 servings of ice creams sometimes at night when I first started working out, and it ruined my mood and my energy levels, where I wasn't showing up for the gym and I was inconsistent for a couple months. And there's been times when I first started working out, I'll take a 3 month break and then I'll go work out for 2 months, being very consistent, and then take 3 months breaks. So it wasn't until um, I went through that phase and learned all the mistakes that I did, and then I started to be more consistent and building better habits and systems for myself. So I think that's important. That just being consistent, it's the skill. It's going to take time to learn, and you just need to put in the reps and showing up for the gym, being on track with your nutrition, and over time you're going to be consistent, because then it becomes a habit. Because then it's not just I'm showing up for my workout today. It's because this is a habit of mine. This is a routine of mine, and this is the type of person I want to be. I want to be a healthy person. I want to be a fit person, or I want to be a strong person for my kids or for whoever that you want to be strong for, your spouse. You want to show up for your spouse, and it's not just about being healthy for yourself, but being healthy for the people around you.
yeah, yeah, it's there's a few things I was gonna say on the back of what you were saying. It's like number one, I think you mentioned a point at the start, like because we're trainers, a lot of people might see us and think we're
Mm.
always perfect, but like we miss days here and there. Like for
Yeah,
example, I live in Portugal, but I'm from London, and I went to visit London for about 3 weeks over Chris in December. And like my training and my nutrition, I was getting days in, like I was doing
yeah,
what I could, but it was nowhere near the level of consistency I have back in my routine where I'm staying now, where I'm living now. And that's okay because I was like, you know what, I'm usually consistent for the rest of the year. Like 3 weeks of maybe 50% consistency is it's not the end of the world. And I think a lot of people think like that, like, all right, if I miss a day, it's over. Like there is no point me
yeah.
doing that at all. So it's also just that aspect of I think realizing that you're not gonna be perfect and that is fine. Like you can't be.
Mm.
It's just not gonna happen. Like especially when you consider it a life, it's supposed to be a lifestyle. Like you're supposed to keep this
Hmm.
up. So you are gonna miss days and that's fine. Like nothing's gonna happen. You just carry on tomorrow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think just realizing that as well is important.
yeah. I mean, yeah. For me, uh, going back off what you're saying, I've been consistent with my training currently, even with Jiu-Jitsu as well. But the past year I've been, so even if you have those breaks, for example, past couple of weeks was holidays for a lot of people. Even if you have those breaks, it's not going to make or break your progress in the gym. Yeah, you might put on a couple of pounds here, you might feel a bit sluggish when you go to the gym, but as long as you just make the decision to show up again and not just say, "Hey, fuck it, I'm going to forget about everything," and just show up for the gym, and just even if it's just a workout. that's not your original workout and it's just slightly lower intensity. Just build that habit of just keep showing up, and when you do that, it just becomes easy for you. It'll be a lot easier for you to be consistent.
Yeah, because you start seeing
Yeah,
results the longer you keep
right.
going, and then results are motivating, and it's like, oh, I want to keep going now because yeah, so it gets easier
Yeah.
with time. Um, yeah, as you said, was there anything else you wanted to say before I go into the final part of what I was saying?
Yeah, I mean, just like you said, seeing results is important. So that's why it's important with our first point of tracking and making sure you're tracking your workouts, tracking your nutrition. Because when you can see improvements in what you're doing, you're more likely to keep going. And that's what keeps you motivated and builds that motivation. It's not just you wake up one day because you just feel motivated. It's because you see yourself improving in the skill, and then that creates motivation to keep you going. So I think that's important that people just understand that they should track their progress and make sure they see themselves improving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because I feel like sometimes it's easy day to day as well to feel like you're not really making progress.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then when you're tracking it, you're like,
Yeah.
like you're like, hold on a minute, like I
Yeah,
am
right.
seeing progress, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's easy to ignore that and feel
Yeah.
like you're not when you're not tracking anything at all. Maybe
Right.
just scale weight, and then even scale weight in itself, like just using that by itself, it's not going to be a good idea. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, no, I just wanted to add
Okay.
that last part. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So I thought, you know what? Well, I'm gonna wind down the podcast episode soon, but I thought we could play and I do this sometimes at the end of like podcast episodes when I have a guest on, like underrated, overrated, or properly rated. Um,
Okay.
we can keep it as brief as you want. But like fitness and non-fitness related stuff,
Hmm.
and I'll just get stuck straight into it. So Apple Watches.
Apple Watches, I think it's overrated.
Okay. Why'd you say that?
Um, Overrated because I think people get obsessed with filling in the circles. I mean, it's great. I mean, I get it. Like it's a good feeling when you fill the circles up. I don't have an Apple Watch, by the way. I'm on Android. I'm team Android. So I have a Pixel phone, I have a Google phone and a Google Watch. I used to have an iPhone actually, but I think people just get obsessed over I need to fill in those numbers or I need to burn as many calories as I can. It's a great tool for sure to keep you going and keep you moving, but I feel people just use it for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that. Um, seed oils.
Seed oils, um, again, it's definitely overrated. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, how come you?
Yeah.
Why'd you say that?
Um,
If you want to justify yourself, I can just go on to the next one.
Seed oil, I think it's over just because people are talking about it so much. The
Yeah.
fact that people are saying like have all these negative emotions tied with seed oils. Um, I would say it's overrated for that type of crowd. I think it's underrated for just the normal public, like people who aren't against sea oils and people who can use maybe sea oils, just oil in general in their health to improve their health. Because there's studies to show that sea oils does improve cardiovascular health.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so just to clarify, do you mean overrated from the aspect of like the crowd that keeps fear mongering it and you're like, it does not need this much attention?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
Overrated from the crowd that's fear mongering, but just underrated in terms of it, in the aspect of people who doesn't see it from like a good health perspective.
Okay. The Nintendo Switch.
Nintendo Switch, I think it's properly rated. They're coming out with a new one.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday
Yeah,
actually.
it
The
looks
Nintendo.
great.
What do you think? You like it?
Yeah, I like it. I think it's good.
Yeah,
I
I
think it's
think
very fun.
do you have a Nintendo Switch or
I personally don't. I used to own one. I don't own one anymore, but I have friends who has it, and we play it when everyone's at the house. So I think it's properly rated for sure.
yeah, the Nintendo Switch can be fun with a group of people. Um, I have the Nintendo Switch OLED. I don't play it that much nowadays. I've barely
Hmm.
touched it at all. Um,
Yeah.
I think I bought it in like 2022, at the end of 2022, and I think for the first 2 years I played it quite a bit. In the last year, I
Hmm.
barely touched it. If I don't think I've touched it at all actually. Saying that, last month I found my old Game Boy SP. I don't know if you remember those. And I've been playing that a lot all of a sudden
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
like not playing it for 15 years. You remember the Game Boy SP?
Yes, I had
Flip
one.
one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mine got
man.
stolen.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry to
Yeah, yeah,
bring back
yeah,
that
yeah.
terrible memory.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I found my old Game Boy DS as well, which was cool because I had
hmm
those gadgets as a kid, and I hadn't found them for like 10 years, and I was like, all of a sudden, oh, yeah, let me get back on these really old school games, which
Yeah.
as
They're pretty
technology.
valuable, you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And in
Oh,
terms of people wanting to buy them.
they're in like
Depend
decent. Oh, gone.
Yeah, depending on also the games you have, they also might be valuable.
Oh, my Game Boy SP, I've got Pokemon Fire Red, Pokemon Ruby, Pokemon
Oh
Sapphire.
yeah.
I don't know what happened
You
to the
got the
rest.
valuable game. Those games are pretty valuable. You should probably keep them. The value of them will go up for
Oh,
sure.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because yeah, I didn't know that because they are in decent condition and they work really fi they work perfectly fine. So that's good to hear. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but Nintendo Switch 2, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, calorie calculators.
Calorie calculators, I think it's underrated for people who aren't using it because they need just a guideline to start. I think it's a bit overrated because every coach has their own calorie calculator, but everything is just the same thing. Like I don't have a calorie calculator. I don't call it like, oh, Terry's calorie calculator, but I know a lot of coaches who they're like, oh, use my calorie calculator. They're like, my calorie calculator is gonna give you the exact number that you need. Like your calorie calculator is not the same. It's the same as if I just go on Google and type in a calorie calculator.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. Yeah, link for my
Yeah,
calculator.
yeah, yeah.
Notes of this podcast. No, I'm
Yeah, yeah,
joking.
yeah, yeah. Go to my calorie calculator,
Uh,
guys.
Times Square.
Times Square. Bit overrated, I think. Maybe because I don't go there enough. But I think for people who've never been to New York, might be underrated.
Mm,
But a lot of the stuff in Times Square is like you know you get a lot of tourist track activities. So I think that's a bit overrated.
yeah. Scale weight.
Scale weight, overrated for people I think they're obsessed with the number on the scale. The progress you make is not just on the scale. There's so many other ways to track progress, especially when you're losing fat. You don't need a scale to go down for your to see your body change. I had clients who work with me for a full year, and sometimes their scale weight doesn't change it much at all, maybe 5 pounds at most, but they look completely different. So I think it's a good tool, but we shouldn't rely on it by itself to track progress.
Yeah. And last one now. I don't even know if you've used one before. A Kindle.
A Kindle, um, I think it's underrated.
Oh yeah.
I don't, I had one, but I don't use it enough. And also I'm not a big reader. Like that's just me. I learn better from like watching videos and listening, but I definitely think it's underrated. I think people can use it. And there's this one that I think it goes black and white, right? The screen it's not colored.
I don't think I might be wrong because I've only ever used one model, but I don't think any
The
of
mod
them.
model. No, no,
I
yeah. So I think it's better for your eyes. Like that's why I'm
yeah.
trying to say it's in terms of it being underrated. I think if you're reading stuff off your phone, you still get that blue light, especially when you're trying to read at night. So I definitely think it's underrated. And it's a good tool to learn. And if you like to read, I think it's important to just have that around you and to carry that instead of carrying around, 5 different books that you're trying to read.
No, I agree. It's been really, I have
Yeah,
a Kindle and it's been so handy for my travels. I
yeah,
prefer solid books, but yeah, when it
yeah,
comes to traveling, the Kindle is just amazing for that.
yeah. I
Just
think
so,
so too. Yeah.
but otherwise, yeah, that's it. Thank you so much
No,
for
thank you for having me on.
this chat, Terry. I thought I'd throw in a few like gadget stuff in that overrated, underrated because I saw
Yeah,
you
yeah,
like gadgets as well and you're about
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I do.
I sprinkle that in. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and having that chat. That was a fun chat. Where can people find you?
Um, Terry Lin Fit, so TerryLinFit across all social media platforms. So mainly on Instagram. I'm actually trying to do more YouTube videos. I actually released one YouTube video last week, so that's my goal this year to be consistent with YouTube. And I want to do a video each week.
Oh,
So
nice.
you'll find me on there. And yeah, email is also terry@terrylinfit.com. So anywhere you should be able to find me.
Okay. Oh yeah, one more thing. Was there anything I mentioned that we discussed in this podcast episode that we didn't cover, or anything along those lines that we didn't cover that you would have liked to have mentioned?
Um, no, I think we covered everything that was important in terms of training and being consistent and tracking your progress. The importance of just tracking your progress and knowing the numbers and the progression you're making for your lifts, for your nutrition, and of course the scale weight as well. But I think we covered everything that I wanted to.
Okay, I'm happy to hear. In regard to like your social media platforms, I'll leave that as a
Yeah.
link as links in the show notes of this podcast episode as well, so the listener can just easily check them out. And doesn't necessarily have to remember how to spell them. Yeah, you can just click the link in the show notes. And otherwise, again, Terry, thank you so much for coming on.
Yep,
Uh,
thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate
yeah,
it.
take care.
Yeah, have a good one.